for joining us. Today we're going to talk about Blackboard Collaborate. So we figured that it's easier for us to use WebEx to start the meeting. I will talk about the features, how to set up Blackboard Collaborate, and then I'll invite whoever wants to and has a really good internet connection to join me in the Collaborate room, and we can go over some of the features there. So I will click Share Content, and I'm going to share my Google Chrome browser. And the advantage of Blackboard Collaborate is that it's a browser-based communication system that's built into Blackboard. And they recommend two browsers for Blackboard Collaborate. One is Chrome, and the other one is Microsoft Edge. Those two are the best ones to use when you're using Blackboard Collaborate. I'm going to go into one of my older classes so that we can do things without having to worry about it. And Blackboard Collaborate is available under Course Management and Course Tools. You will see a link called Blackboard Collaborate Ultra here. Unfortunately, students do not see, or fortunately, students do not see anything that's under Course Management. So then you have to make it available to them if you would like them to use it. The way you do that is by hovering over the plus and selecting Tool Link. And from the list of available tools, you will see Blackboard Collaborate as one of the options. When you click on that, you can give it a name, and generally giving it just Blackboard Collaborate makes sense. And you can make it available to users. Once you do that, it will insert a link into your side link for Blackboard. When you click on it, it will bring you to the Blackboard Collaborate interface. By default, every single class, every single course shell has a course room. You will see that it's unlocked and available. If you want to see the settings for any of the sessions that you have, and we'll talk about how to create a session in a few minutes, you can click the ellipsis on the right, and it will open up a menu where you can join a course room if you want to, you can edit the settings, and you can view some reports as well. You also have the ability to lock that course room. If you click on Edit Settings, it will bring up a list of settings if you click on this settings wheel here. There are a few different things to keep in mind. So by default, the room is unlocked, as I mentioned. So if you do make it available to students, they can come in and they can join that room. However, if they're joining that room, they are joining it as a, by default, participant. And there are three different roles in Blackboard Collaborate. Participant is the most basic one, which really means that the person who's joining as a participant, all they have the ability to do is to video chat or text chat, but that's it. As a presenter, you have the ability to share the screen, and then as a moderator, you have the ability to do a few other things. You're in charge of the room, basically, as the moderator. By default, the instructor is always going to be the moderator. Students, by default, when you're creating a session or when you go into your own course room, this will be, the default role will be participant. The advantage of changing it to presenter, like I have it here, for example, for the course room, is that you can allow students to use this independently. So they could come in and they could share the screen and they could collaborate on a project, and you don't have to be present for them to do that. But you do have to change that role to at least presenter if you want them to do that. Right below it, there are a couple of choices that have to do with the recording, whether you're going to allow the students to record the download, to download the recordings. You can always download the recording. You don't have to check this box for you to be able to download the recording. I don't recommend turning this on, but it is here in case you ever want to make it available for students to download. However, keep in mind that you kind of lose control at that point, and they could take the video and they could upload it to YouTube or something, and any privacy issues that you may worry about can become exacerbated. You do have the ability to anonymize the chat messages. So one of the things that Blackboard Collaborate does do by default when you're recording is it also records the chat. And that is really useful, but it also could become a privacy issue. So you do have the ability to anonymize the chat messages just for the recording, which really, while you're in the meeting, you'll see the whoever is talking, but when it comes time to viewing the recording, they're not. This is just which profile picture shows up in the view, and you have the ability to add a profile picture. Students have the ability to add their profile pictures, so you could turn that off if you feel that they need even more privacy. Participant permissions really, right? They have the ability to share audio, which means they can talk. They have the ability to share video, which means they can show their camera. They have the ability to post chat messages. And this one is interesting here. This one is draw on whiteboard and files, and you have to be careful with this one because while it may be beneficial, it's anonymous, so you won't know if you have 30 people in the meeting which one of them is actually drawing on your screen. So I generally would recommend turning this off, turning it on during the meeting if you have a reason to, but by default I would turn that off. You do have the ability to allow attendees to join the session using a telephone, which could, again, be useful. And there are two ways of them joining by telephone. They can join by telephone anonymously, or they can join by telephone and have the connection made between their avatar and the audio connection. Unfortunately, you cannot separate the two. So if you do allow the telephone access, it's going to be either one. So again, if you're worried about someone joining the class anonymously over the phone and making trouble, this is probably not something that you want to turn on. However, at the same time, it could be really useful because some students may have trouble with their internet connection, and having the ability to call in and participate in the class could be useful. So it's one of those things that you have to decide whether you want to allow it or not. You have a choice as to whether you want to allow private chats or not, which means whether they can chat amongst each other without you knowing. You do have the ability to supervise those chats, though. So if you do check this box, there will be a message in the meeting that says that moderator is supervising all the private chats, and I highly recommend that you actually mention that to students as well, so that they're not under the false impression that what they're saying amongst each other is private. And then there's a profanity filter, which just hides profanity in the chat messages. So those are the settings that you have in any of the meetings, whether you're talking about the course room or you're talking about the session that you're creating. I'm going to hit cancel for now for this. And the difference between the course room and a created session is really just the fact that this one is available at any point by default. If you're creating a session, you can specify an end time and a start time. You can make it so that it repeats. So I'm going to hit create session and you'll see a few more details here. But other than that, there aren't really many differences between the two. So
you can also make it topic based, correct? So like if you wanted a session on blank and a session on blank, blah blah blah, different times, topic based would be a way to do it, correct? Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, so this allows you to name the session, and you actually have to name the session. So if you, for example, want to have your class meetings using Blackboard Collaborate, you can call this class meetings. You have the ability to set a start time, which would be just the first session, right? So say our class starts on Monday the 7th, and it starts at 12 o'clock. I have the ability to adjust those times and dates, and I also have the ability to change the end time. So this would be just for the first session here, if I'm doing a recurring session. If I was doing a session that's just that one session, then I could just leave it here. But I do have this ability to turn on repeat sessions. So if I click that, it will allow me to decide when it's repeating. So if my class is happening Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I can click on that, and it will repeat every week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 12 to 1. I have the ability to end those occurrences after a certain number, or I have the ability to end it on a specific date. So if I'm doing this for my class meetings, I can go in, I can say that the semester ends on December 11th, I think, and it will create sessions up until December 11th. This early entry is interesting. This applies both to you and to the students. So, as opposed to WebEx, where if you create a session, you can join it at any time. In Blackboard Collaborate, you actually are restricted by these times here. So you have to decide when you want to turn on early entry. If you turn it on for yourself, you're also turning it on for students. So that's the only thing to keep in mind about this. By default, that's set to 15 minutes. You can also provide a more of a description to what this meeting is about, and then you just click create, and it creates a series of meetings. So if I scroll, and then I can close this.
Yeah. We have two questions, Bo, before you continue. One, do students get invited with a link when you do this, like when you create a session? And then secondly, can you create sessions with more than one class at once?
Mm-hmm. So the answer is no to both of those questions. Students will have to come into the link that you create for them in the course, and they will have to come in the same way that you would come in. There is no link that you can send to them to the meeting. And also, what was the second question again, Trevor?
The second question is, can you create a session with more than one class at once? I think that's what you meant, Wes. If I'm wrong, come off mute.
And you have the ability to allow for guest access. So I'm going to hit create session again because there was one more thing that I wanted to talk about there.
All right, I have one more for you when you're ready, though.
Mm-hmm. So you have the ability to turn on guest access. The moment that you do that, it pops up with the menu. You can decide whether you allow the guests to come in as a participant or with a different role. You can change the roles as long as you, as the moderator, are in the meeting. You have the ability to change the role within the meeting. So this is useful more if you have an invited speaker to your class rather than anything else, because the issue with creating guest access for sessions is that guest access is anonymous. So then you will get prompted, and this is actually what we're going to use for our tryout. So I'm going to turn on guest access for it, but you have the ability to choose whatever name you want. It's an anonymous login. You don't have to be logged into Blackboard or anything. So I'd be careful with this guest access link. You said there's another question?
Yes, I answered it in the chat, but make sure that I'm correct. Kristen asks, is an unlocked course room separate from a scheduled class meeting? And I said the answer is yes. You might elaborate on that, but yes.
Yeah. So there are they are two different things. So the course room is something that's available by default in every single course. So if you go into your course, and even if you don't turn Blackboard Collaborate access to the students, you just go through course management and you go into Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, you will see that room is available. Now at that point, if you haven't made it available to students, you're the only one who can access it. But by default, it's on and it's there as long as there's a link to get to this Blackboard Collaborate page. So I'm not entirely sure what the difference is. It's just a course room that's created by default, right? I mean, you can really just duplicate the same things that you would do in the course room in a scheduled meeting. So it's just that it has no start and it has no end. That's the biggest difference with the course room.
Okay, so she also goes on further to say that if I had a student who said they were in a room with nobody else in it during class time, but the rest of us were in a different room that was scheduled, she was wondering how that could happen and what that might look like.
Yeah, I mean, it's students have the same access to this interface that I'm going to close this for a second. Students have access to the same interface that you do, right? So I'm going to I'm going to enter student preview. And once I enter student preview, right, there's no course management here, but I did create this link for Blackboard Collaborate. I click on that, and I'm seeing the same exact thing that we were seeing before. So as a student, I could by mistake come here and click on this course room and join the course room while everybody else is in the scheduled class meeting. So one of the ways to avoid that, at least with the course room, is by turning off the course room. So you could, technically speaking, go in and lock that course room. So if I go back into Blackboard Collaborate as the instructor, I have the ability to click on the ellipsis and I can lock this course room. Once I lock it, students will not be able to enter it now. So if I go back to Blackboard Collaborate and Student Preview, it's there, but it's locked. So I don't have the ability as a student to join that session.
Great, Bo. Thank you very much. Kristen thought that was helpful. Wesley O'Brien asks 2 questions. One I can answer myself, and the second one you can answer, Bo. When students create their own sessions, can more than one be going on at once? Wesley, students cannot create their own sessions and collaborate, as far as I'm aware, unless Bo knows something otherwise. Your second question is, would you be able to pop in and out of each session that's ongoing? Bo, can you answer that, please?
Yeah, so any session that's open and it's started, you can join at any time and you can leave at any time. Students cannot create their own sessions, but you can create a session for them. So that's why I was mentioning this ability to change the role that the default attendee has when they come in, right? So I would say I would use this course room because it's open. It doesn't have a start date and it doesn't have an end date. So I would use it to make it available for students to come in and just share their own screen and collaborate there amongst each other. So you would just change the role to presenter. If you want to create a session for them to do that, you can. You would just create a session and they would, again, have access to the same sessions that you have. Does that answer Wes's question?
I think so. They can say if it does not. We have a couple more. I'm going to go to this Wesley's first, even though it's not in the proper order. I think it's a quick answer. When you create sessions for students, can you select which students enter? Anyone who has access to your course can enter these sessions, so you can't individualize them, I think. Correct, Bo?
I'm sorry.
You can't pick certain students for your session. Anyone who has access to the course can can see everything. Right. Okay. We have from Obi says, I did everything you said, but the create button did not function. It had a circle sign.
So just be careful that you're actually naming the session. That's, I think, the only, I'm going to start again. So you create a session and you have to give it a name. This is the only thing that is going to stop you from creating the session. Right now, I can't do it. But once I give it a name, I'll be able to just click create. So now if I scroll down to that same place, that circle has disappeared. That's the only thing that would stop you from creating a session.
Perfect. Thank you, Bo. Carrie asks, when the course room is locked, can they still see video from the meeting?
Yeah, so the recordings, they can is a separate area, and I'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll touch on that, Carrie. All right. So yes, Wes, thank you very much. Okay, can Bo please explain how to give students access to the Collaborate Ultra? So I guess, do you mean Vera? Is it Vera? Do you mean creating a link on the side, the navigational link? Is that what you mean?
So all you have to do is just hover over the plus, select Tool Link, in the type, pick Blackboard Collaborate, and give it a name and make it available. This is what I did, and I created the link here. This is accessible by the students. They just click on this. It brings them to the same exact page that you're seeing as the instructor. They have limited access, right? So they wouldn't have these session options where they can edit the rooms or anything like that.
Perfect, Bo. Thank you so much.
So I'm going to create a session so that we can take a look at it. The other thing that I didn't mention, when you're creating the session, you have the ability to share the attendance reporting to Blackboard. So you can, in Blackboard, create an attendance, column in the grade center, and then if you're using this to take attendance, you can have it so that it automatically populates that attendance column within the grade center, and you can set the requirements. So you can say, right, that they are marked late after 15 minutes, or they're marked absent after 30 minutes, or that they're required to be in the session for at least 50%, or whichever percentage you select. And then it will automatically fill in the grade center column if you click the share attendance information button.
Bo, if they bail out early, like say they show up for 5 minutes or 10 minutes and they bail out, does it let you know?
It doesn't, I mean, you can see who's joining and who's leaving, just like we can in WebEx, but
Okay.
and it will show in the attendance reporting. And you can, even if you don't do this share attendance information with the LMS, you can get a list of the participant when they joined and when they left and how long they were there and all that. So I'll show you that in a few minutes as well.
Fantastic. Thanks.
So guest access, again, as I mentioned, is probably really most useful when you have a guest speaker for your class. You could make a session that's open session for the students. So this came up the last time we were doing a training, say that you have your students split up into groups and you want them to have a space where they can collaborate as a group. So you can create a session called Group 1, a session called Group 2, a session called Group 3, and you can make those so that they are open, they don't have an end, and any point the members of Group 1 can jump into the Group 1 link, the members of Group 2 can jump into the Group 2 link, and it's not that they're all coming into just one room and then having to take turns. However, there's nothing to stop the members of Group 1 from entering the room for Group 2, or vice versa. So any meeting that you're setting up, as long as students have access to it, they have access to it. You cannot decide who has access to which part of it. I'm not going to make this a repeat session. Under settings, I'm going to leave everything the same. The only thing, again, I'm going to draw your attention to this draw on whiteboard and files, and then I'm going to hit create. The moment that I do that, now I have a guest access link here. So if I were doing this with a guest speaker, I could click on it and I could copy that link. I'm going to copy this link and I'm actually going to share it with everybody here. And that way, whoever has a good stable internet connection can join in this room as well. And we haven't had problems as long as the internet connection has been stable and we've had people join us. So if you feel brave enough, click on that link and you can join us. You can send this link to students, but this is guest access, which is more or less anonymous. It prompts them to type in a name, but you can type any name you want in that box and you wouldn't know who that particular person who joined is. So I wouldn't use this to send to students, no. I would really keep guest access just for having a guest lecture. So I would have students join by going to the link for Blackboard Collaborate and joining the meeting. If the meeting is scheduled and it started, it's going to say it's in progress. So that's another way for students to identify which one of the meetings is actually going on. But then you can click on the meeting, it pops up with this, and you can join it. So once I join the meeting, the first time that you ever join a meeting, you will see that you have a pop-up that asks you to allow access to your microphone and to your camera. Please make sure that you do, because if you don't, and if you decline it, then you are not going to be able to use it. And not only that, but you'll have to go through some hoops to get back to having the ability to actually do it. So thank you for those of you who are joining, right? I have a list of attendees here. It says which attendees have what role. So me as the instructor in this course, I'm the moderator. It's telling me who's trying to join as they're joining. So I know that Winnie is joining, but she's not there yet. And then I have the list of participants. I can also hover over these boxes here, and this will actually tell me how good the connection is. It can tell me how good my connection is, but I can also see how good the connection is for each of the participants. So if I have a student who's telling me that their internet connection is not good and that's why they're dropping off, and I'm looking at this and it says it's excellent, then I'm going to question as to what they're doing. But you can tell by hovering over that. The other thing to keep in mind is that as opposed to WebEx or any other video conferencing system, you join this by default muted and with the camera off. You have the ability to click on the box and turn it on, turn this on, and it will start sharing. I'm not going to do that right now because I'm already doing it through WebEx, but just know that when you first come in, you're going to have to turn on your camera and your share audio. And there's also a button there. You can raise your hand, and the faculty member can become aware. There are two modes, right? So this is a grid mode where we only have up to four cameras showing up at once, right? So 4 participants, if their cameras are on, I could see them. More than that, it just tells me that there are more coming in. It switches based on who's talking, so it's not really, it's the same experience as in WebEx, where the videos will change based on who's talking last. I have the ability to switch to follow the speaker mode, but those are the only 2 options that I have. I have this grid or group mode that they call, and I have the follow the speaker mode. In the meeting, there are 2 places that open up to give you more options. There's the session menu that we have over here that allows you to start recording a session. You can use your phone. This is where students who are in the meeting and they're having audio troubles click on it, and they'll give them the information with the PIN number. So this PIN number is particular to me, right? So if when he looked at hers, it would be completely different. If Trevor looks on his, it would be a different PIN. So that way it connects the audio to that particular person. But that's the problem, is that while this is really useful, you also have that anonymous call-in number. So if you are concerned about students creating issues, you're going to have to turn off both. There's the only way that works. Don't share your PIN, because if you do share your PIN, then whoever calls that number and dials in the PIN will start speaking for you. So
I've done that. It's not great.
Yeah, each individual has their own. There's a box to report an issue. There's a box to tell you a little bit more about Collaborate, and this is where you can actually leave a session as well. Now, as opposed to WebEx or Zoom, where the host, once they leave the session, they close it out for everybody. I can leave the session now, and the session will continue without me. So there's no way for you to kick out the students from that meeting unless you delete the meeting. So if you do end up having issues with what's going on in the class, you will actually have to go here and you will have to delete the session. And once you delete the session, I think it will probably dump everybody out. But you cannot do anything. You can eject people, so I can click here and I can remove Trevor from the session. Mm-hmm. But Trevor has the ability to come right back, and there's nothing to stop him from doing that. So hopefully he'll come back again. So there's no way to lock the room once you're in the meeting, as it is in WebEx. So you're again, right? So Trevor's right back. It took him 30 seconds and he's back. So if you do end up having issues with students in the meeting, you'll have to delete the meeting, and that's the only way that you can stop it. And then the other button is the one that's over here, which is called the Collaborate panel. And if you click on that, it will open up all of the options that you have. So by default, it just goes to chat, and I have the ability to send a chat message to everyone who's in the meeting. I have the ability to find someone to send a text to, so I can just search for Trevor and just send a message to Trevor. I have the ability to, again, just send something to everyone, and then everyone would get it on their screen. once you get a message, you have the ability to see it in a pop-up, and then you have the ability to go back to your chat. So even if I am somewhere else, I can see that I have a chat message. I can go here and I can see that Trevor sent me a message, and I can respond to that message again um, um, by typing in the chat. I have the ability to check my settings here. So if you are having some issues with your camera, especially if you have multiple cameras on your computer, you can change those settings and make sure that they're working. And then once you do that, it will say you're good to go and you can go in.
So we have a question from Caribou, and I'm going to answer it. Tell me if I'm wrong. How do you get student or faculty photos in the Blackboard course? Carrie, I don't think that's possible. I think you can get that in Banner, and they're populating that with the student photos from the card office and faculty photos from the card office. I don't think that you can import them in a Banner or into Blackboard. Bo, do you have any other information besides?
Yeah, so you can change your own picture. See how Winnie has her own picture there. You can click on settings, just like I'm in settings here, and then click on the picture, and I have the ability to change my picture. The only thing about this is it's personal, so I can change my picture, but I can't change anybody else's picture, so they would have to do it themselves.
Very good. We have another question. Other than being able to see more people at the same time, what advantage does the WebEx have over Blackboard Collaborate? I'll answer this, Bo, unless you want to. WebEx, I guess there's disadvantages and advantages to every single platform. WebEx, if you send the link to anybody in the world, they have the ability to join without being part of the learning management system or without having to go to a website specific to Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. Collaborate, it has great advantages over Blackboard at the moment with the breakout room ease of use, also it being integrated directly into your learning management system, so your students are automatically populated, so you don't have to worry about that aspect. So it's really give and take into like what you want to use it for and who your intended audience is, I think. If I'm missing anything, Bo, please feel free to
Yeah,
pop in.
yeah, and the other difference, I don't know if you mentioned, it's that it's web based. This one is web based, and WebEx is app based. And you'll see some slight differences in how you share your screen. When we get to that in a second, which depending on where you're used to, will take a little bit of time to get used to. So there are some notification settings here that you have that you can change. That again, it's the settings wheel. Again, just like with anything in Blackboard or anywhere else on the computer, if you hover over a button for a little bit, it will actually tell you what that button does. So this one says it's shared content. So I can go here and I can see a list of how I share content. So now I have the ability to share a few different things. I can share whiteboard, which can be advantageous. I can use a pencil and I can start writing on the whiteboard. This is where having not turned off the ability for other people to use their to annotate my there we go. Someone's drawing on my whiteboard, and I have no idea who's doing that. Right? I mean, I think it's Trevor, but maybe it's not Trevor.
It might be me.
Okay, yes. But there's no way to tell by looking at it, and we're both using the same exact color as well. So it's something to keep in mind. You do have the ability to go into settings here and have the ability under settings, session settings, to turn this off. So now that I've turned that off, whoever was just trying to draw cannot anymore. And I can clear the drawing and start all over again. So it's easy to turn it off if you run into problems. You just go into settings, session settings, and turn off that ability to draw on whiteboard and files. Now, I can stop this.
Yes, the answer, Jonathan Irving, is yes. Bo can type on the whiteboard as well. There was a type tool, and if he clicks that type tool, he's able to type.
Yeah, so it's a fairly standard whiteboard that allows you to do shapes. You can use a pencil, you can type text, and you can change the colors, and that's about it. But it's actually could be very useful. I'm gonna hit stop on that. The next one is share application. What's the question about the participants? I missed it as it came in.
It's a question that you answered a second ago about how can people upload their photo to Collaborate.
Oh, okay. So I have the ability to share my application and screen, and this is the big one, right? That everybody's going to use. You have, once you click on that, you have 3 tabs up at the top. You can share your entire screen, and if you have multiple screens, it will allow you to pick which one. I have 2 screens attached to this computer, so it's showing both of them, and I can decide which one I'm sharing. I have the ability to, I'm going to hit share for a second. By default, when you share your screen, you get this tunnel picture. Blackboard Collaborate is saying that this is just fine because it just tells you that this is actually working. So if I navigate away from Collaborate and show something else, it should look just fine for the people who are seeing it on their screen. But it's just a feature of how things are getting shared. Is it still looking weird on your side, Trevor? I think you're muted.
Not as weird as it was, but yeah, it's still now it is. Yeah, it's still doing the mirror effect. Now we're back to
drawing it. Oh, okay.
No, we're back to whiteboard.
Okay.
Or white screen.
So it's just a Microsoft Word document that I'm sharing on the screen. Okay. So that's just, they're saying that's just a default thing. I'm gonna hit stop sharing on that. Then I click that share application and screen button again. I have the ability to just share an application window. One of the things to keep in mind if you have multiple desktops on your computer is that the application that you'd like to share has to be on that particular desktop. So I have at least 10 different applications that are open on my computer right now, and they're not showing up on this list. The only ones that are showing up on this list are the ones that I have on this desktop. So you may have to move things around if you use multiple desktops. And then the last one is a Chrome tab. I can share Chrome tabs. Now, the thing about that is that you have to have that tab open, right? So if I wanted to show a new tab, I have to now create that new tab, go back to the list, and now I can see the fact that I have the ability to share a tab. So if I click on it, I also have the option of sharing audio, and this is where it's really just in Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge. So if you are looking to share a video from YouTube, you have to check this share audio button. I can then select the tab that I want to share, click share, and now I have the ability to navigate in here to wherever I'm going to find what I'm looking for. And they should be seeing the same thing that I'm seeing here. Unfortunately, I'm out of the meeting now, so I can't see anything about what's going on in the meeting. I could click on it and it brings me back to it, and I can see what they're seeing on the screen here. But this is the difference between Collaborate and WebEx. So right now I still see Trevor there, and I still see a couple of videos showing up, so I can tell what my students are doing at least. With this one, I actually have to physically go back and click on the tab and see what they're seeing. I'm gonna close that. If I close that tab, it automatically stops sharing, or I could have gone back and stopped sharing it. You have the ability to share different cameras. If you have a different camera that's attached to your computer that you'd like to share the picture from, you can click on the share camera. This share files button is pretty powerful. So if you have PowerPoint files or PDF files that don't have animations and they don't have transitions and things like that, or video or sound in them, you have the ability to add a file and then share it with your students. So I'm going to pick one of the PowerPoints that we have, and it's going to upload it to Blackboard Collaborate, and then it's going to convert it, and then I'm going to share it, and it's the same thing as sharing it, just like I would be sharing any other PowerPoint, except it's being done through Blackboard. Now, the question came up before as to, can I add this before class starts? From the settings of the class, of the session, you can only enter within that window that you're setting, right? So anywhere from 60 to 15 minutes, depending on how you set it up. You do have the ability to go in, change the dates of a meeting, add the file to it, and then change the dates back, and the file will still be there. But that's the only way that you can go in before class and actually add the files to share them. So this is going to do that. While it's converting, I have the ability to do polling. I can do two types of polls. I can do multiple choice questions, or I can do yes or no questions. They're really fairly straightforward. I can just type the question and hit start. I can I don't have the ability to create the questions ahead of time, but what they say is that I have the ability to just create the questions in Microsoft Word and then copy and paste them into Blackboard Collaborate if I want to. I can hit show responses here, and it will show students who's responding, which responses are being made, but it's not saying who is responding which way. So you have the ability then to download this information afterwards. You won't be able to tell during the meeting who's responded how. Once I'm done, I can hit stop and it will end the poll. If I go back now to share files, there's my file here. I can click on it, and I can click on it, and then I can click share now, and it will show me the list of the different slides. I can just pick the slide that I want to start from, and it brings up the slide. And this is the easiest way to see what's going on and collaborate, right? I'm seeing the same interface as everybody else now. I have the PowerPoint up, and I can go through it. I have the ability to annotate, and by default, if I left that on, students have the ability to annotate. But if I go to a next slide, the annotation disappears, right? So if I go back and now go forward, whatever annotations that Trevor is making on my screen disappear, right? Or any annotations that I've made. If you click stop sharing, it doesn't mean that the file gets deleted. The file is still there, so you can always go back to it. So this is a good way of sharing PowerPoint or a PDF file. Just keep in mind that if you have any animations or any videos that are built into it, that won't work. And then breakout rooms is really easy to do and really flexible. So I can do these groups in a variety of ways. I can do this randomly assigned. I can do anywhere from 2 to 5 groups, right? Depending on the number of participants. Right now, I can do 5 groups because I have 10 people in here. If I had more people, it would be more groups that I could do. If I want to, I can say, right, 4 groups, 2 groups of 3, 2 groups of 2. I can allow the attendees to switch the groups or not. I have the ability, though, to actually even manually move people around. So if I want to move Kristen from here to another group, I can move her manually to a different group. And now she's in group 4 rather than group 2, and now it became a custom arrangement. I have the ability to just hit start. I can click on this ellipsis and I can move her by doing that rather than dragging, so I can move her back to group 1. And then once I'm done, I can click start. And this will automatically split everybody into the groups. It says I'm in the main room. It's telling me in my list of participants who's in which group. I have the ability to join any of the groups by clicking on the link here next to the group name. It's saying that I'm moving to group 2. Now I'm in group 2. I can see who's in group 2. We can have a conversation. I can share my screen with them. And they have the ability to raise their hand. So Trevor, can you raise your hand for a second?
Yes.
So now I know that Trevor is raising his hand. I can communicate with Trevor directly by sending him a chat message, or I can go into the group that he's in and have a conversation and see what he's doing. I also have the ability, which I don't have in WebEx, to lower someone's hand. So once I'm done talking to them, I can lower his hand. The other thing that you saw that popped up there is that I can make someone a presenter. So if you want them to share their screen within the group, you can make them a presenter. So I can make Trevor a presenter now. And Trevor, within that group that he's in, now has the ability to share his screen. He doesn't have the ability to exit the group. He's still in that group, and I'm the only one who can stop the group. But he has the ability to share his screen within that.
Yes. We have 2 questions on breakout rooms, and Kristen, we'll get to your question in a second. Since we kind of popped into breakout groups, we'll come back to it. Let's see. We have. Is there a way to set up breakout rooms before classes in session? Is the first question, Bo. The second question is, what if there are an uneven number of students in the class?
Yeah, so there's no way to do it beforehand, and if it's an uneven number, I mean, right now I have a group of 2 groups of 3 and 2 groups of 2. I mean, the groups don't have to be even, so you can move people around it and have you would just have an uneven group.
Very good. And since we're at a little point right here, we'll just answer Kristen's question if you wouldn't mind, Bo. So the only way to view your PowerPoint and see the Collaborate screen at the same time is doing what you were showing, is sharing your PowerPoint presentation through the Collaborate interface. Is that correct?
To see, yeah, more or less. I mean, you could try to rearrange the screens, right? So I could share my application. So I'm gonna end the breakout group, and this will pull everybody back into the main room, right? And then I have the ability to open PowerPoint on my computer. And actually, I'm not sharing my entire screen right now, so you won't see that on. But what I can do is I can open PowerPoint on my computer. I can rearrange the 2 screens if my screen is big enough so that they're side by side. And now if I'm sharing PowerPoint, so let me share just the application. I hit share. Now I can see both. Is it really tiny, Trevor, on your screen?
It's kind of small, but I can still read it. But it's not great.
So that's the only way. And one of the things actually is that you can, when you're in PowerPoint, and this is a PowerPoint feature, you have the ability to run the presentation in window mode. So then it doesn't take you to full screen and takes over the whole thing. But it's a when you're running the PowerPoint, when you're setting up your PowerPoint.
Okay, we have several questions now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's see. If you record a lecture, do the breakout rooms get recorded? Like if you're recording in Collaborate and you have sessions, what happens? How's that work?
Yeah, so I don't think so. I think that the only thing that gets recorded is the main room. If it's anything different, I'll send them email. But I'm pretty sure that I read that it's just the main room that gets recorded.
All right. The next question is, how do we record a lecture outside of class time and make it available to the class? Bo can probably answer this better than me, but I think you use a different tool for that. I think you use Kaltura and then make it available in your Blackboard course. Bo, do you have other suggestions for that?
Yeah, I mean, you can also record here if you want to, and you would have a recording. So you can join this Collaborate by yourself if you want to. You hit start recording, and it will start recording. Once you're done, when you get out, I'll move on to the recording in a second. If there are there any other questions about this?
Just about group assignments. Are you asking me, Bo, or are you asking the group?
I'm asking the group. Are there any questions about, or you?
Oh, we have a question from Winnie Hugh, which is, can breakout rooms be assigned and connected to Blackboard groups? I think the answer is no on that, Winnie. Is that correct,
Yeah,
Bo?
no, I don't. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a quick start guide for students? Can I use group? No, OB, you can't use groups you already made. You have to reline the groups up when you open Collaborate Ultra. Go ahead, Bo.
Yeah, in terms of Blackboard itself has a link. I mean, if you're interested, just send me an email. I'll send you the link from Blackboard that has the information for participants.
Thank you, Bo.
Okay. So I'm gonna leave this meeting, right? Whoever's in there can leave as well. If you don't leave, actually, Trevor, do me a favor and stay in there for a second. Don't leave. I want to delete the meeting and see if it.
Okay. I was actually leaving. Perfect. All right.
So I'm going to go here and I'm going to delete the session. Did you get knocked out?
It says Mr. Bogdan-Zamfir has left the session. No, I'm not knocked out yet.
Really? Okay.
Margot has left. Kristen's still here.
So you're still in there.
I'm still in there. Yeah.
So apparently there's no way to end the session for everybody. Even if you delete it, it's still there. Okay.
Yeah. There's still 5 of us in here. 6 of us.
Okay.
Oh, better raise your hand even.
And I can't even access the meeting anymore, right? So the meeting is gone off of my Blackboard Club.
Yeah. Kristen's causing all kinds of trouble in here too.
So the recordings, once you record a meeting in Blackboard Collaborate, it's going to be here under this menu that you have. If you click on it, you see a tab called Recordings. Once you click on Recordings, you will see all of the recordings that you've made. You have this ellipsis here. If you click on it, you have a whole bunch of options as the instructor. The students don't have all those options. All they can do is actually watch now, unless you gave them that ability to download. So you can watch it, you can download it. If you go to recording settings, really the only thing that you can do is change the name of the recording. And you can delete it, and you can actually get a link to the recording. So this is where you can actually make that link available within Blackboard. So while you can't make the session available in Blackboard or link to it in Blackboard, otherwise just by Blackboard Collaborate here, I can take that recording and I can go into weekly materials, wherever I want to, and I can build that link in there. So I can go in and I can build a link, or actually the other thing that I can probably do, which I haven't tried, is I can click on item, I can insert video. I'm just going to call it test and submit. And actually, I'm getting an error about Adobe being blocked, so that do anything. But students do have that same ability, right? So if the student hits Blackboard Collaborate, goes to the hamburger menu here, they go to recordings, they will see the same exact list of recordings. Like I mentioned, the only thing that they can do is just watch. So they will click watch now, and it will pop up, and it will start showing the recording. Not only does it show the recording, but within the recording, as I mentioned, you have the ability by clicking the open chat panel here to see the chat that happened within the class. So that's the only thing that you have that's available within the recording. Any questions?
We got a thank you. Thank you very much, Marcia. We have about a minute left, Bobo. I don't know how much we have people leaving for
other anything else. And that's why I said, are there any questions?
Let's see. I came in late, so this may have been answered, but are Blackboard and Blackboard collaborate the same? If not, is the information transpo from one to another? Blackboard is a learning management system, and Collaborate is the communication tool inside the learning management system. So one is inside of the other, to answer your question. We're getting a bunch of thank yous and people having to run to other meetings.
So the one thing that I didn't mention was the reports for those who are still here. You can see a report for any session by clicking on the ellipsis after the session and viewing the reports, or you can get a report for your course room, and you can see who's joined and when they joined and for how long they were in
Carrie, the video of the meeting will be on our website. We will probably try to email everybody, but if not, let me paste a link to our recording section for you, everybody. That is where we have all of our training recordings. You can check that out. It's on our site. Perfect, Karen. That's great to hear. Yes, Lauren, thank you as well for coming. Yes, Carrie. Very, very good.
Okay, so I'm going to stop recording then.
Perfect.